Hello and welcome. Today we are going to talk about how to make your contracts rock. Now, most people don't consider contracts all that fun or sexy, but I think they are one of the key building blocks to having a successful business. And if you take these tips and you put them into your contracts, you're instantaneously going to be a lot better if you follow this advice. If you're new here, my name is Taylor Darcy from Think Legal, where I help you create the business of your dreams. So welcome. Please subscribe and or like, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I go live. So let's get started. The number one thing that you want to take a look at your contracts and ask yourself, are the contract clear? And and the term is clear and definite terms. So you want to be as specific about dates, times, places, exact services going to be rendered, the terms under which they're going to be rendered, what positive things that you can look at and really make sure that you've got what exactly that you're trying to accomplish with that contract. Because if they're not clear, then and this kind of is the next point, is that vagueness hurts you and hurts your company. If something gets out of sync between you and the other party in the contract, then there's really no way to reel that back in if there's a vague term or vague clause or if there's vagueness in the contract. So be as specific as you possibly can. Make sure that you are as, yes, it's tedious, or it can be, but in the end, it truly is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So spending the time today to get it correct is well worth the amount of effort cost. So the next thing that you're going to want to do is focus on the details. And one of the phrases is the devil is in the details. And what it really comes down to is just like making sure your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, your periods are in the right place, your commas are in the right place. You're making sure that it is as clear and grammatically correct. It can make a huge difference in whether or not your contract is upheld in court, or if there's a breach, whether there's a settlement. So as clear as you can make it, paying attention to those grammatical errors or issues, then is really, really important. One of the other things, though, and I don't see this very often, but you really want to make sure that your contract is more like Goldilocks than not. And what do I mean by that? You want to make sure that your contract is balanced and fair for both parties. Otherwise, if it's too one-sided, there could be what are called it's called a contract of adhesion. It's hard to, the idea being that the other party doesn't have any say in what happens with the contract. And that's really what the contract of adhesion is. And it's so one-sided that the courts won't make the other party hold to it. Now, those are rare, but the idea being that you don't want it to be so difficult to adhere to the contract that the other side just gives up and says, screw it. The other thing is, if it's too restrictive, if I'm looking at a contract, I reviewed a contract a while ago for a wedding photographer. And the wedding photographer had obviously drafted it himself. It wasn't a professional job. And he put in a lot of crazy terms, and he put in a lot of terms that were very one-sided and unfair. And I told my client, I said, you need to find somebody else as a photographer. That is not a good contract for you, and it's only going to end up hurting you later. And so people, you'll lose business if someone does it right. Now, problem is that not everybody hires an attorney to review a contract. And so that's something that you want to be careful of when you're signing contracts, is that you do have somebody review it professionally. It's worth the money that you would save on litigation and or potentially a bad experience. I recommended my client find a new photographer because of that. Then the other thing is you don't want it to be too vague. I had another client who was a single page contract. The contract was really bad. It was more like a term sheet, and it really didn't adequately protect. And so there was so much vagueness in it that it would have been, vagueness is construed against the drafter. So if you aren't clear in your terms, which is why I started with number one about your, having very fine details on it. But if it's too vague, then you end up exposing yourself to litigation. In that case, would have been, it probably could have been around $2,000 that the client, but instead they ended up having to pay $6,000 because of their vague wording and the way that they had done their contracts. Be very careful with your contracts. Detail as possible, but not so much that you make it too one-sided. So it's crafting a contract is like developing creating a fine wine, if you will, giving it time, letting it season, letting it develop over time. It's an iterative process, meaning you have a base contract, and as your business improves, you continue to revise it. You continually build. You don't just leave it, start with the contract and just leave it that way forever, right? Because as time develops, you want to hone it. I guess it's a better way of saying it's like a sculpture. A good contract is like a sculpture. You start out with a big block of granite, and each thing you do, you chisel away to have down to where you have the perfect contract for your business. And so sometimes you get there and you're going to polish it and sand it, and you're going to make sure that language is clear. It's like a statue. You want a statue that is clear, depending on what your thing. Talking Michelangelo and the David, getting down to those finite details, that precision is going to give you a stronger contract and a more beautiful contract. I mean, that was the principle behind the David, but a more beautiful contract. What do I mean by that? A contract that fulfills the best purpose for both parties. And it really gives you something that you can look at and be proud of. That's number one. And number two, something that you're going to protect the other party, and protect third parties if there's issue with third parties. Against third parties. One kind of misconception is that you can download something off the internet and get a decent contract. The truth is, a customized template is okay, but that's not customized. That's like boilerplate language. It doesn't really give you the details that you're looking for. When you try to customize a contract yourself, exposing yourself to potential issues that you aren't aware of, versus if I'm drafting a contract or another attorney is drafting a contract, we've already been dealing with similar contracts, and so we kind of know what to look for, and we can add clauses that will help you. The other thing is that even if you do download a contract against the best wishes, because it's $50 instead of $250 or whatever amount that it is, you want to make sure that contract is customized for each party, making sure that you don't put in the wrong parties' names, you don't put in the typos that can happen. You really want to make sure that you sit down and you spend the time to customize your contract so that it's correct for each party each time you do it. So it's not just some boilerplate one to the next. Because otherwise what can happen is that then typos are again construed against the drafter. So you want to make sure that each party has their own specific contract, fully executed, both parties. And you want to make sure that not only are both parties executing, but both parties get a copy of the contract. And that can happen very easily these days with HelloSign, DocuSign, a lot of these different companies that are electronic. And those are all perfectly legal. So don't doubt it. You don't have to have a wet signature these days. The other reason why you don't want to rely on downloaded contracts because a lot of times, like, your industry may have specific clauses that are unique to that area. And so if you download the wrong type of contract and it has the wrong clauses in it, then it may not protect you. And that's really what we're talking about, is that you want to have a contract that protects you. That's what makes a contract rock. That's what makes a contract give you the benefits at both parties, right? I mean, this is about a contract is a beautiful thing, but it's got to benefit both parties. That's the whole purpose of a contract. Following these tools, these ideas, these things that give you, just keep in mind that drafting a contract, ideally, you want to have an attorney draft it to begin with. because I'll tell you, fixing a contract is a whole lot more painful than just writing a contract from new. So when I look at a contract, that's what I look at as someone done a good job or a bad job. And unfortunately, the truth is most of the time, most people that do their own contracts end up doing a bad job. I highly recommend that you hire somebody. It doesn't have to be obviously me, but hire somebody to draft your contracts, review them, make sure that they're up to date. Look at them each time you do them. Like I said, it's an iterative process. You want to go through and continually update it and continually fix it. You are you're sculpting that David of a contract, right? Now, eventually you're going to get to the point where it might be that you get the same thing, but you still want to update it for each party. It doesn't matter that part of it. You want to make sure that it's very clear on what each party is getting and payment options and so on and so forth. The clearer it is, the happier every party is. So if you've gotten value out of this video, please subscribe and like and the bell icon, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.